This is a video that started out as my failure to pull together a different project that I was working on. It's still coming at some point, but involved an awful lot of footage from different games, and playing through little snippets of them all just really made me wish I had the time to play through them and really get into them, instead of just passing by for some gameplay recording. It reminded me a little bit of how I used to play games when I was younger, bouncing from title to title and playing whatever interested me for however long I found it interesting. That's not how it is for me anymore though, since as much as I can I like to play through games one or two at a time, going from start to finish before letting another one occupy my attention. This has been shifting a little bit since I started making videos though, as I find myself having to drift around to collect footage for things I want to talk about, and in some ways it's been liberating, while in others it's been kind of frustrating. That's why for this video we'll be talking about the two main ways you can play games, focused or scattered. These ways of playing games are exactly what they sound like. Do you like to laser focus on one game at a time and experience it all at once? Or do you like to hop around from game to game based on your current whims, keeping multiple balls in the air until you eventually drop them for new ones? Focus gaming is a philosophy of having one or two games ongoing that you play from start to finish, or at least until you make the conscious decision to stop playing the game altogether, with the driving idea being that you want to experience the game in its entirety before giving another title the space that it occupies in your mind. Scattered gaming, meanwhile, is unplanned and unregulated, so it can't be pinned down quite as easily. The driving idea behind this method is that you simply play any game that interests you at the exact moment in time that you find it interesting. With scattered gaming, you don't really care whether you finish the story of a game or are playing potentially dozens of games at once, because you don't see it that way. You're just playing whatever you feel like at any given time. Now, these don't need to be completely opposed to each other, since it's easily possible to move back and forth between the two, but most people tend more towards one method or the other. While you may come out of your scattered playstyle to hone in on a particular title that's caught your fancy, you're likely to return to playing in the scattered way once that game's been finished. As always, if you liked the video or my channel, do all the things to let YouTube know you liked it, comment how you play games, all that jazz, so maybe someone else will actually get it recommended to them, and let's get into it. Playing games in a focused manner sounds quite simple. You pick out a game, you play it, you finish it, then you repeat the process over again with a new game. This comes with its own benefits, namely that you are committed to a game and can experience it in its fullest and theoretically most rewarding way. Without the distraction of other games getting in your way, your focus is solely on this one title, and you can get the most out of it. The impact of a good story is heightened when you remember every aspect of it while you're swept along. In the same way that the ending of The Shawshank Redemption is lessened if you walked away from it for a week and watched pieces of 12 Adam Sandler movies before coming back to finish it, so too is the impact of a game story lessened when you have less context and investment. If you come to a twist or another moment that is emotionally or intellectually intense and find yourself asking, wait, who was that again? Why did they do that? Like your partner who's half watching the show you're watching on the TV while they're scrolling Instagram, that moment is as good as ruined. Even after you have the answer to your question, you go, oh, that makes sense. That's clever. The impact has been fully lost. As much as it can make engaging with entertainment media sound like work, the more you put into a game, the more you'll get out of it. Further to this, games also have this little thing called interactivity that other types of media don't, and a focused playthrough of a game will ensure that you are familiar with the controls and systems of the game the whole time you're playing it. If you walk away from Sekiro halfway through playing it and come back months later, you're likely to get absolutely minced in a manner that would somehow be even worse than the way that game treated you before you left. By playing your games in a focused way, you're as engaged with them as possible and have the best chance of having the experience the developers intended you have. Another plus to playing in a focused way is you can actually finish your games and see how they turned out. This is clearly not something that motivates a lot of gamers, since the statistics show clearly that most people just don't finish games. Like, ever. Did you know that only about 5.4% of people who've played Grand Theft Auto 4 on Steam have actually finished the game? One of the biggest titles of its time, and if you lined up 19 people who've played it, odds are only one of those people actually finished the story. But I digress. That's a topic all its own, and we won't get too deep into it here. Chances are, though, most of these people probably don't want to not finish the games that they don't finish. If you talk to someone who loved GTA 4 and played it a bunch before something else shiny caught their eye, they'd probably tell you they would have liked to have finished it. Lots of people like the games they play but don't finish them because they move on and then feel like it's too late to come back to it, or else their attention shifts away entirely and they don't even realize they've left as many games unfinished as they have. It's It's not hard to see the benefit in finishing a story or experience, and playing in a focused way ensures that you can see the games you start all the way through to the end. It's not all sunshine and roses playing games in a focused way though, as there are some negatives. First and foremost, if you hit a slow part of a game and feel like you've committed to finishing it before you play something else, it can seem like a slog getting to the end, and can harm your overall enjoyment of it. I know I've had times where I wasn't fully into a game that I'd committed to finishing, and sort of avoided playing games for it because I just felt somehow obligated to finish that game first, and really didn't feel like playing it. If you're the type of person who likes variety, this can also crop up as an issue when you're playing a particularly long or difficult game. Since you only play one game at a time, it can be easy to get bored or frustrated along the way, and not enjoy it as much as you might have if you took some extra time to cleanse your palate in between chunks of the game. I know I wouldn't have enjoyed Bloodborne quite as much as I did if I hadn't taken some time out from grinding Chalice dungeons to play Minecraft and relax in between. Another problem with playing games in a focused way is you can find yourself over-planning when you play certain games or feeling like you're missing out on something because it doesn't quite fit in with your schedule. I know for me personally, I ran into this issue when Zelda Tears of the Kingdom came out, because I was most of the way through Triangle Strategy at the time and hadn't managed to finish it by the time I'd planned to, and didn't really feel like I could play Zelda until I'd finished my previous game, and then I was missing out on what everyone else was playing at the time. Playing games in a focused way makes sure you can finish them and experience them in a continuous manner, helping to ensure a consistent and thorough experience, though it can also get you stuck in a rut if you're unwilling to budge. If none of what I've said just resonated with you, you probably play games in a more scattered way, which means hopefully what we're about to talk about will sound more familiar. If you thought focused gaming sounded too rigid and prescribed, the scattered method is for you. Though I suppose calling it a method would be counterproductive, since there really is no method to this madness. To play games in a scattered way, you just have to play them. There's no worry about finishing stories or losing progress. It's all about playing whatever you feel like playing in the moment. Probably the biggest positive of playing games this way is that you never feel like you're missing out. Want to play Dark Souls for the 7th time? No problem. Feel like ditching that to start a run of XCOM? No problem. Feel like leaving your soldiers to die so you can play Spooky Cats? You get the idea. You're always playing whatever you want with no compromises. Another advantage of this is that you can be having multiple different experiences at once and satisfy multiple cravings simultaneously. If you feel like playing a cozy game at the same time as something more action heavy but don't want to pick up just one game, you can always fit some time with Spiritfarer in between your sessions of Elden Ring. When taking the scattered approach, you're never locked off from a type or genre of game by what you're currently playing because, well, anything can be what you're currently playing. This can also be beneficial if you just want to experience as many games as possible and have limited free time, whether it's to have a frame of reference for what people are talking about, or even just for your own personal knowledge. If you want to have played Zelda Tears of the Kingdom, and Elden Ring, and Yakuza 5, and whatever other long games I currently have footage for, you can do that with a fraction of the time commitment it would have taken you to have played them all the way through concurrently. You may not be able to speak directly to the endings or plot developments of these games, but you do get a general idea of what they're about and can feel like you've engaged with them as much as you can in your own way. Playing in a scattered way can also make it easier to find games that you love, since sampling more different games increases the odds of happening across something that will really grab you. It's essentially the speed dating of the video game world, where you sit across from a lot of games and ask questions about their family and work. I think I've actually only ever seen speed dating in movies. And then pick the one that interests you the most to spend the next few weeks getting to know. By increasing the size of the net you're casting, it becomes easier to pull in more nice, juicy fish. This leads us neatly to the downsides of scattered gaming, since in our speed dating analogy, it's easy to pass over the slightly socially awkward game who didn't make the best first impression but could have been wife material if you gave her the chance. I really need to get away from this metaphor. Additionally, if you start several games all at once on a whim, you may never finish any of them and be left with incomplete experiences. I know this isn't something that will bother everyone, but if you flit aimlessly from game to game and never come back to the ones that you meant to, it's hard not to think that you might be missing out on something you might have enjoyed if you played it in a more focused way. As I mentioned earlier, playing games in a scattered way can also hurt our impression of games by lessening the impact of some moments in games due to the preceding events having faded in our minds. As time passes without us having engaged in a game, our level of investment naturally falters. This means whenever we pick up the game later, we won't feel as connected to it as we did before. This is multiplied by the number of games that we're playing at any one time. If you're dividing your attention and investment between several games all at once, each one is a little less special for having to share that space in your mind with several others. Scattered gaming is essentially choosing breadth over depth. You get to have more diverse experiences simultaneously, but each one is a little more shallow than it would be if you focused on it exclusively. I alluded to my own preferences earlier, but I'd like to take a moment to indulge my narcissism and talk about the way I like to play games before we wrap this up. For me personally, I was traditionally a scattered gamer. I would play little snippets of games before dropping them and starting something else, and that was how I spent my first several years playing games. Then, sometime around my first year of university, I think probably because I'd packed up all my games to take them with me, and I really took a good look at them all, I realized how few of them I'd actually finished. I decided to go on a cleanup run, and either went back to and completed or got rid of all those games I was partway through, and I found the experience really freeing. Ever since then, I've primarily played just one game at a time, especially as I work my way through my massive backlog. Watch that video if you haven't already. Though I do give myself some leeway by having both a primary console or PC game and a portable title on the go at the same time, so I can switch back and forth if I feel like I need a change. This brings us nicely to the conclusion of the exercise, where I tell you what the 100% most scientific best way to play games is, and that, as always, is somewhere between the two playstyles. I think if you play exclusively in a scattered way, you're robbing yourself of the potential for getting stuck deep into an experience and really seeing the rewards of putting your full focus into one game. If you play exclusively in a focused way though, you might enjoy a game less because it just isn't the right game for you at that time, or you aren't in the right headspace for it right now, and just slogging through to the end immediately isn't going to help you like it as much as you might have otherwise. As always, thanks for watching, and on the off chance you aren't related to me, or if you are and haven't already, like and subscribe, tell a friend, all that jazz. See you next time.